I want to welcome you to an extraordinary interview that Petra Nicoll and I will be doing with each other. Not in the normal common sense, as that one or the other is asking the only questions and the other one always answers. No, we both today will be talking about, are there such things as soulmates or simultaneous similar souls on the planet? Is our persona having something to do with our soul at all? And have you met your duplicates on this planet? See, we typically come and into this understanding that it's me and everything I do in my life is individually really, really, really me. But what if what you do is actually an expression of a pattern that potentially the God light shines the same light through, and then maybe you could meet and exchange the same past life memory? Let's talk today with Petra Nicoll and Ilona Selke. And that was my German und, Both of us are German born, English speaking. So I am going to stop this moment and then we will go right into introducing ourselves, each other, and into questions as we discover the sameness, the likeness, and the question of what is soul and what is personality and who are we really? I would like to introduce Nicoll first to you. Nicoll is an internationally published author. Her book, Petra's Ashes, about her near-death experience, I've already interviewed her about in another interview. Her other book series about manifesting and the use of your consciousness is written in her series called the Billionaire Series. And she does coaching using biofeedback. We are bookends of the same thing. That's what we want to talk about. Now, I'm going to turn over and let Petra introduce me for you so that you know who we're talking with, and over to Petra.
Thank you for this great introduction. So, Ilona Selke. I met Ilona. We were both featured in a book by Jack Canfield, and Ilona called me to interview me. And I was so impressed with her background in radionics and as an international author doing work with people in Bali at her retreat center called Shambhala. It is an amazing place right on the ocean. And I think Ilona also has a spa in that place. Is that spa still working? I'm coming now. So what else is it that you do? I don't even know all the scope of it, except that you swim with dolphins and whales and that you've written so many books and your TED Talk was spectacular. So perhaps I'm leaving something out. You have to fill me in.
That's all right. We will. I always figure, like, go Google me. Type my
Oh,
name, you'll
Google
find
me.
out. But what we are here
Yeah.
to discuss, Nicoll, and for all of you listening, we're going to take turns asking each other questions. But what is, in your spiritual journey, you have had moments of incredible enlightenment. And I also know that you've had out-of-body experiences and looked in from out of your body when you were 9 years old, then later on realizing that you are not your body at a very early age. So can you tell us a little bit more about the nature of what you feel soul is, and then we'll talk to you about our amazing similarities.
So at 9 years of age, having a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience, was extremely confusing. And coming back from that and coming through the whole system of the Catholic Church, I really had to be careful who I shared this with. And so when I finally mustered up the courage to tell my mother, she told me that it was inappropriate for me to ever speak of it. And I started going very inward with this information because it became like the fantasy that I had experienced seeing the masters like Jesus and going through the tunnel and, shooting through the tunnel like with the speed of light and coming out in the enormous library and meeting the apostles and Jesus to then send me once again back to this body, but I didn't want to go. So my experience opened my mind to the curiosity that a 9-year-old child really shouldn't be thinking about on that level. So when I go back to Germany now and I meet friends that I've known since I was 5 or even 3 years old, they always would dismiss it as, oh, you've always been weird, you've always been strange, you've always been looking. So they're not surprised
Right.
by my path, So
And when you went to India and then really pursued with your guru, and I just, do you know how many people have that I know? I mean, yes, I happen to know now a lot, but how many people in normal life follow the light and sound teachings from India? I mean, out of the plethora of normal people pursuing any teachings,
yeah,
I how many? Eh,
well, I think it is internally guided. There were, you know, when a soul comes into this form, first of all, I think it is an accumulation of lives that we all have.
right.
And in some of these lives, we've done meditation, we've practiced meditations, we've become seekers for truth after truth. We want to find out why we're here in this body. So we go into this amnesia of coming through here and taking on another body, which is like a facade or just this clothing. And then at some point, we all have to wake up. And so coming to the masters, from the time I had this near-death experience, I was looking for my teacher, but it was not any teacher. I knew it had to be a Christ-like
Mm.
being that would then be able to show me the path back to the other side. Because the whole time since my near death, I've wanted to leave and get back to this blissful state of love and ecstasy that I experienced when I was there. And then I met you. Yeah,
That you met me. No, but
really
I mean,
interesting.
you were looking for your master and you met your Indian master, right? Isn't that what you were saying?
I met my Indian master, but then as life goes on and you run into people like you, and you
Right.
realize that you're seeing the
You're
mirror of someone that had the same or similar path,
and
it is really, really extraordinary.
so when I called you and said, "Can we do an interview for Dream Big, the Universe is Listening," which is the book I was promoting at the time. So this was a summit to help people understand that we are living in a co-creative universe and that God discovers itself through its own eyes and is looking back at itself and invites us to look at that which is beyond the form, but yet to create through the form. It's, when I was 18, I wanted to have like the garb of a monk. I thought I should just wear a gray tunic, um, and that would be just fine. And I discovered that God does not just create one gray flower for one planet and all over the planet the same. It's a billion different colors of flowers and butterflies of different shapes. I mean, birds of all flocks of colors. So we are not duplicates and nothing is duplicate. But yet, when I interviewed you, I listened to you and I'm like going, as I'm gifted and I'm like going, I just had the feeling that I was listening to myself. And then I asked you, what past lives do you remember? And I'm like, what about this, that, that? You called up all the past lives and ways of being that I recalled myself to have occupied, even similar people. Now, I have never encountered one other person who had those same visions. And like
Mhm.
you, I was told in my dream, I was following Yogananda. I'd studied with Yogananda's teachings, the Kriya Yoga, and before I did my promised Kriya commitment, he said inside in my dream, he's long deceased, he said, you have to follow this master, the light and sound teachings, go there. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'll do that. And then I called in America, a center, I had friends who had read books, and I had read some books, and I called the center where I was studying philosophy, comparative religion. And Don is my husband of now 40 years, is the man whose voice answers and said, "Let me take you on the high road to God." And that was, we saw each other. And when we meditated, we merged into a singular star. And I knew we were soulmates. Now, when I talked to you, I didn't feel we were the same. I mean, with Dawn and we're not the same. We're like complementary, but we are the two sides of a medallion type of soulmates, like in that sense. I wanted to discover, what if you have the same past lives? And let's go over the facts. Let's go over the facts of where you live and how I live. What all is the same? Let's just rattle off. Ask, do you remember some things that are the same? So we can show the viewer, we thought we were individual, and yet we're just duplicating ours. So we have duplicates running around.
So it also comes back to the desire body. For example, Ilona, speaking to the audience now, Ilona loves to live near water. So do I. I can't really exist living anywhere but near a body of water.
And it
And
just
it's
so
very
happens for
similar.
me. It
Mhm.
happens. Yes.
Whether it's in Bali or your place in Washington or wherever you are, or things you would say to me. It's like, when you go, do you ski? I ski a lot. So I'm a
So that's the
kind
one
of,
thing I don't do. Actually, I made a conscious choice not to. I said, okay, skiing produces outcomes I don't like, so therefore I don't. But I go walking in the mountains when it's, snowy, or I go, I mean, the mountains are my home.
the mountains are your home. And so is this the same for me? The
And you were
mountains.
born in the Alps, and I was born in the Himalayas.
True.
I was. But
You were
you have,
really born in the Himalayas. I'm finding out something new about you.
yep, yep,
Tell
yep.
me about that. How were
Yeah,
you
well,
born in the
my
Himalayas?
German parents, just after the World War, decided to live abroad, and that's where they lived. They traveled through India. And my mom is sure, in utero, she collected a soul from India. And when I look at you, and both of us, we have that, you know, Eastern feel. We dress that way. We love that way of thinking. But not only do you live on water, you have a volcano behind you.
Well, our lake house has Mount St. Helens as the backdrop. So, and the same for you. You
I have
have
Mount Baker here. I have another
Baker.
volcano. When we lived in Hawaii, we had another volcano. We looked out the window. We have now a volcano, Mount Agong, behind our house. I mean, there's so many kilometers. How about cetaceans?
Yes, speak on that, please.
I always have had cetaceans around me. They're in front of all where I live. Volcanoes, cetaceans, and beach living is like, I'm like going, Dawn, do you think this is a plan? I mean, wherever we go, that's what we are doing. I did get a place in Bavaria.
You did.
Yes.
Okay.
But anyways, how about you with cetaceans?
The same thing. We have the lake house. We have this river house. We're walking along, and these rocks that are in the water, and these amazing, like today we're building stairs down to this ice cold river called the Lewis River, which comes straight from the mountain. So we're doing these cold plunges like
Lunges.
Wim Hof method and all this
Yeah,
sort of thing. And now I have a bathtub in my backyard.
right. And that's where I spend my mornings going, we're looking at the mountains with the hot tub. Tell me,
Yeah.
in your books, and that's where we write about the same things. We write, well, what would you say is the summary of your teachings?
What would I say is the summary of my teachings?
The
Ooh, to
common
help
theme.
people. For me, it would have to be, and that is the headline on my website as well, because I do coaching and biofeedback, and I love teaching Reiki and different workshops. The summary is self-realization. I just really love to help people realize how extraordinary they are, and this is a very transitional lifetime, and to not sweat the small stuff.
Mm,
They
mm,
have the power to create their own reality or step out from one reality into the next one.
right. That's exactly what
You
I
don't
teach.
like one scene, if
Ego
you,
too.
as you think, so you become, as the Buddha said, we're all able to switch off.
And if you gave me a story where you had such phenomenal, maybe magical experience of like going, switch that time stream, that video. Let me just put another one in. Do you have a
You
story?
know, Ilona, you're a world traveler,
Yeah.
and you know how when you pack a suitcase, and perhaps you are in a place for a few years, and you're sort of used to it, and maybe even attached to it. And then you pack a suitcase and you come out from Washington to Bali, and your whole reality shifts. It's the same thing.
Well, no, tell
It,
me a story of your life because actually, I make sure that I've set up my life so I don't have to pack a suitcase. But anyways, um, I'm
that's funny.
seriously, yeah, all right. But I go from
No,
one
okay.
wardrobe to the same wardrobe, just a different temperature in another country. But tell me about a magical experience where you said, oh, you know what? Different video. Why don't I just change timelines and give our viewers a story of your personal life where you can say, look, this is how it works. This is how we switch. When you say we create our own reality, what you have, I'm sure, lots of stories in your books. Can you give us one?
Well, let me think of a story when I was younger.
Or anytime now, recently, any, or when you wrote books.
Now,
Yeah.
recently,
No, a magical one, a
um,
magical one.
a magical one, a magical story. I would say that the most magical one would be the time when I moved to India from Germany. And when I, for the first time, met my guru, sitting on the floor with his hair down and his turban was off, eating apple slices. I remember that exact moment so well. I was on a very long flight from Munich via Frankfurt to India, and I was 23 years old. I had just had the most extraordinary introduction to my teacher, to my Saint Radhaswami teacher, Takar Singh. And I was invited to come to India. And it was a difficult time because I came back from London after many, many years in London, struggling to survive. Everything was expensive. And I kept thinking, this cannot be my life. This cannot be my life. I did not sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this. But yet I was in it. I was in this story of rescuing someone from Persia. The war broke out in Iran. Ayatollah Khomeini came in. My future husband's father was imprisoned and tortured. His mother was Baha'i in hiding. I went through the entire scenario, and God sent me through understanding what war was and how people were deported and they confiscated passports. And I was in this whole whirlwind. This little girl from Bavaria, from this little village outside of Munich, suddenly was in London in a war zone.
And
And
they were
then
deporting people out of London back to
out
Iran.
of London back to Iran, yeah, to send them to the war.
And
And
wait a second. And he had an English passport?
no, I smuggled him on a train into Germany to hide him because I knew that if he went back, he would be most likely lose his life. Most likely. Because he was in Iran during Shah's time, he was a rock star. He looked like the dark
But
version of
wait a
Rod
sec.
Stewart
Your to-be husband was a rock star?
in Iran. Yeah,
My husband was a rock star.
no way.
Yeah. I mean, we have not touched even an iota about the similarities that are in our lives. I mean, not only are we writing the same kind of books, teach the same kind of things, which is we are living in a consciousness interactive universe. We have lives, we live on lakes, on water, we dress the same. I mean, me in white. I used to wear all the Indian flowy clothing thing colors, but you know, your husband has produced Chi-O something. We have sold Chi-O, Chi organizer things for decades. We
Yeah,
have been working in radionics since 85. You work in a similar field. You call it biofeedback coaching. I,
yeah.
we have memories of the same past lives as though we were one and the same person in the same body. How can that be? Now, your Pod's, to be husband was a rock star. You were involved in a Persian world, and I feel like we both have that look, that feel of Persian imprint still. I was born in a Persian, I spoke Persian when I was a child, obviously. So, yeah. So, uh, I mean, and then you went to India and you did the same kind of training under the Satnam teachers, who, just for the audience, was developed because they accepted women into their clan. They did not want to segregate only spirituality for the men. They wanted to have everybody, regardless of their caste level or their femininity or their sex, become
Mm.
part of the path and have the access to enlightenment back in the whenever they started this. That's a Satnam teaching. So that is where we both come from. Now they have multiple teachers, and you took one branch, I took another branch, and ultimately I realized, and they said, once we get you to the soul level, you're on your own. We'll be there as inner guides, but you have to keep on going into,
Mhm.
and give me a little bit about the cosmology of enlightenment that you practiced, learned, and understood. So we give a little bit of a spiritual understanding. When you met your teacher, he was, your teacher, but what did you learn that you now would give it in a nutshell to the audience about your spiritual perspective as to what is your highest truth?
In a nutshell.
Yeah, because we have
So
a video.
coming back to the story for just a moment,
Yeah.
arriving in India from all of this tumultuous reality. And somehow, Ilona, what is so strange? I always knew deep down inside that it was a movie and that it wasn't really real. I always felt it. I don't know why, even at a very young age, at 9, 10, 11, as a teenager, I always felt I was walking on a path, but I wasn't really there.
Mm,
I felt like I was a multidimensional being living in another reality simultaneously, but dropping down into earth. So, which made it difficult because I was often ungrounded.
mhm,
And so when I met my guru, and I was drawn to this particular teacher through a friend that introduced Takar Singh to me and the Satmam path, when I met my teacher, he saw me and looked above me. And my mother had passed away a few years earlier. So 6 years earlier, my mother died suddenly, and I
when you were
found her.
16.
I found her. And
You found
I
her reincarnation, or you found her soul?
I found her dead
Oh
in the
God.
kitchen.
Oh,
And I could not let her go. We were so, she was my responsibility.
mm,
And I had to take care of that soul, and it was my assignment, and I knew it. And my teacher confirmed it to me
mm,
that I came to India and was invited to India for my mother's soul liberation,
wow.
and that she was existing as part of me, and that he would help her to go wherever she needed to go.
Wow.
And so when she finally said goodbye, I saw this vision of millions of pods of souls on a planet, and one of these souls floated up above the other beings that were
Mhm.
sitting in sound meditation, plugging the ears, millions and millions and millions. And one soul floated up, and it was this beautiful woman with red, thick hair. It was my mother in a 30-year-old body.
Mm,
Because, on the other side, everybody's around younger 30.
right. How we feel
And,
now, right? I mean, that's what I feel like.
and she came to me, and I recognized her eyes, and she said goodbye. And that was the final goodbye.
Mm.
And your question was, how can I give in a nutshell?
Your concept of how soul exists, what do you feel about individuality, soul reincarnation? Because, for example, in Buddhism, although they do have the lineage of the reincarnation of the lamas, of the Dalai Lamas and the Rinpoches and the recognized um, Rinpoches, it implies reincarnation, but yet Buddhism developed coming out of India in a way to try and eliminate this whole complex system of deities and said there is no soul. Now, that's typically the concept that there's consciousness, there is no soul. Yet, what is in you? What is in me? What do you believe about that whole, in a nutshell? Yes.
Well, first of all, I 100% believe that there are souls. I do believe that we could possibly, you and I could have come perhaps from a group soul agreement that we both signed it's before we incarnated, said at such and such a time we're going to meet, and we're going to remind each other.
We're similar enough. And what would, yeah, is like a soul pod, right? That has multiple streams coming out. And this is the
Yeah,
mega
yeah.
entity, and these are the individualized versions of it.
So, how they say, you come from this group soul, you're incarnated in the Christ group soul, or the Mary Magdalene, or the Divine Mother, that all is a cluster. But then if you're born in India, you're within the Krishna system, or,
Right.
all the deities there. Everybody
Hmm.
comes from different arenas. But I think
Waves.
at the end, it's all the same. It's just that we have to somehow name it because we're on planet Earth,
Right.
and we can't organize it in our little minds unless we somehow name it. And what is my takeaway from my guru? I mean, the greatest blessing in my life has been my teacher showing up at the time when he did, because I had lost complete hope. And
Mm.
if he sat here instead of me right now, what would he be saying? Is that there is a lot of hope, there is a lot of love. We are on the threshold of something very, very big. The golden age is coming. I know it looks really dark right now, and things are really, really dreary on the planet, and there are wars being fought, and there's a lot of corruption. But we are moving, and this is something he spoke of frequently, and you heard this from your master also, same somewhat background, is that we have one foot in the photon belt. And I just spoke of this yesterday, where we have a foot in the photon belt, fourth, fifth dimensional field. We're being changed from a into a more crystalline nature, where we're more compassionate, we're more psychic, we're less ego focused, we're less focused on survival and the fear of survival. And this is all going to shift on our planet very quickly now. Things will come out in medicine, and we will see a shift in the energy and how we're getting energy. All this fight over oil, etc., all these people that are warmongering over all this is all going to be eliminated.
Yeah, and it is my prayer. And I do think part of our co-creative nature of our consciousness has the responsibility to pre-envision transitions, and we are in a transition, hopefully benign and peaceful, but it may not be. But we will birth a new world, and the next evolutionary stage of our humanity hopefully will be given a chance. And I see, for example, and have held my eyes on the fusion generation, the fusion of bringing two atoms together and fusing them, which liberates a tremendous amount of energy. The same as when two people meditate and love, it become a singular unity. It creates the doorway into the next field, in this case, plasmic energy. And I do believe that that will happen. But what happens in a world where we're more transparent, where we know the things and the secrets of one another? I mean, you don't have to be psychic. All you have to do is open your eyes and suddenly you see things and know things. At another stage, we are having veils in front. And I remember when I was 18, I felt like I still had the veil. And I'm like going, I want that veil opening and see the greater reality. Um, so I then worked at that. And I remember one of my first meditations is just like following that current back to the source. It's almost like taking a journey, even though ultimately when you arrive, you can say there is no separation, there is no journey, but without it, and this is a confusion I find happens a lot. People say, I'm already God, I'm already one. This is it, I'm God. It's like true. And limited expression thereof. And when you raise your attention to a unified field, you can tap into, and that greater field can start flow through us individually, and it places through the pattern you've chosen, like as if we're the same geometric pattern. You and I have similar, even though you're a Leo, I'm a Gemini, we are there are fundamental soul patterns, fractals, let's say, a certain arrangement of a crystalline structure that will make similar choices. And so is it me who chooses to live by the water? Did I choose that? Or is it what forces itself through the fractal when I open that grid work up? I can make it up wide, I can let in more light or less, right? I can beautify, I can exemplify or make it extraordinarily brilliant and open up wide to the source, or less, but the pattern will shine this much less light or that much more light, but it's still similar pattern. To meet you and to meet myself looking at back and going, having my own life and going, oh, she does that and that, and that's the same, and that's the same. And but I still feel like I am me and you are you. And how, I mean, I've had other people in my life where I meet them and there's one woman, she came to the Shambhala Retreat Center. We walk, we shake our hands, and I said, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And she said that I'm you, literally. We both had the same thought. I had, in India, I was teaching a seminar, and I look across and I go, that's me sitting there. I don't mind being duplicated. And we were talking about that. What do you feel about individuality and the individual nature of your soul's journey and the state of illumination that you have reached or reach into as being an evolutionary journey? Does it matter? Does it contribute to the soul union? Or tell me a little bit of how you would see that.
Well, what always fascinated me, as you know, on the Satmap path, we meditate a lot. And so I spent 11 years meditating 10 to 14 hours a day. And I was one of the full-time meditators. And then, my guru kicked me out of the nest because I wanted to live in India and marry an Indian man and stay there and just not come back to the West. So this question, when you leave your body and you go to the other side, what always so fascinated me, Ilona, is that how everybody was merged together in love, in this tremendous love, but yet everyone retained their personality, their character even. And this is what
Preferences.
blows the mind. This is, how is that possible that I'm still Petra?
Yeah. And when I was a child, I always wanted to be called Petra.
Oh,
Yeah, really, really. I made my sister call me Petra.
well, you can have my name.
No, I love Ilona now, but honest to God, that was my superpower name. I was this super dimensional being and I pretended I could speak English fluently, fly, float, make magic happen, and my name was Petra. So,
So the biggest realization I had on the path of the masters was an experience where I was on the swan the size of a boat, with a magic wand in my hand, my guru standing up in his astral body
mm,
with a, what do you call those? Some kind of stirring device. What are they
right,
called for so
root,
boats?
rudder, yeah,
Paddle, with a
paddle.
humongous paddle, and steering this boat, and crystal mountains all around us with amethyst and diamonds and stars and angels flying, and everything was liquid. It all just flowed into the mountains. And I was able, he just kind of smiled at me, and he had this little twinkle in his eye, and he wanted to teach me something very important. You have the magic wand, now create the worlds you want to see. And so I was there for 4 hours in this meditation, creating these worlds and creating these worlds and having just a blast, just staring at my beautiful astral form of my teacher on this swan on this lake, and realizing when I came back, which was rudely interrupted by a friend of mine who told me it was lunchtime. It was in an ashram setting. I'm like, wake up!
Ding dong.
Like, don't ever disturb somebody when they're meditating deeply. But that's okay. He was forgiven. I realized after this event that the greatest blessing of all blessings is to come into the human form, to be given a body,
Mm,
and to serve humanity,
mm. And to be a creator within the creation.
to be a creator here,
Yeah.
and how to create. And to get back to that question about earlier that you asked me, what were one of your most amazing moments of leaving one life to the next, arriving in India
And I
with
wanted you to
at least
tell,
when you,
right,
yeah.
but I mean, the question was, give me an example of how to create magic. What is something that you can show how you did it, which way you did it, and for the viewer to know, change live streams. You said, pick this movie out, take two. I like this movie better, so I'm closing my eyes and re-envision it and create a new world.
If everybody had a live remote control
Hmm.
with 10 or 12 buttons, and you could remote control into a new life,
Right,
what would it look like for you? Like if you had to push a button
right,
for July 1st, 2024, of where you see yourself right
which,
now, and you
right,
could use this remote and go click,
click.
and you're in it. What would you write, and what could you imagine about your life in that moment? What could you imagine of where you could be on the beach in Hawaii, drinking Mai Tais? Or would you be sitting in an ashram in India meditating? Would you float on a boat in Bali? Would you swim with dolphins? What is it you want to create? Because our imagination is so powerful, our thoughts are so powerful, they can actually take us there. I mean, look at your life, Ilona.
Well,
You have
yes.
really the most magical life of anyone I know.
Yes, and I have specific
Yeah.
steps that I teach, and all the way from how to create stories of how I've done it in my books to the deeper realization that what it really is about is actually, in my book, is the purification of your soul. It's the choices you make at every single step will reflect that potency of your soul. And ultimately, it leads to, like you said, being a vessel of love. But it's almost like the divine uses its own crystalline structures to create new fractals to remember itself. So my deepest realization is the return to the singularity of God in all, or to feel that pulse, to be one with that, is to remember that you are the source and to feel that um, unity. And then
That
yet
you're already
at the same
perfect.
time
Yeah.
taking the form and making the best of it to the best of your abilities. That, I mean, yes, I have magical stories that I write about in my book, and where I decide, like, no, I mean, I love my trash story in Hawaii, living in Hawaii, having these 3 junker cars there. I oftentimes speak about it in my interviews, so I don't necessarily want to repeat myself, but you can read about it in my books. That particular story is in my book, Dolphins, Love, and Destiny, is where I just sat down and in 5 minutes decided that these 3 junk cars that my neighbor had tried to eliminate for 3 months, and I just arrived after doing a seminar tour around the world and going, God, I deserve better than this. I was living at the edge of a natural forest, a couple of roads back from a dolphin beach. And I said, I am in the world of my choice. And this is what it is. Beautiful, it's a paradise, and it's clean.
Mhm.
And I suddenly heard crunch, crunch noises, which I was like going, could that be it? I mean, but I can tell you the secret is to feel absolute certainty that whatever it is you're envisioning is happening,
Mhm.
and in all of your cells. When you can feel that, matter can rearrange itself. It's
When you can feel it,
when
yes,
you can
and
feel
that's
it.
yeah.
I have other wishes where I said, I really, 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 really want this. And only 80% of me says yes. And best, I get 80%. It
Well,
is,
that's the sabotage part of it.
no, it's in perfect alignment with all parts of us. It's not even sabotage. It's a
Mm.
perfect rendition. It's not what our ego mind thinks it wants. It's a perfect reflection of what all of us wants. And so we can look at, okay, is it the perfect rendition of what I thought I wanted, or is it even more perfect? Because I really wanted my boyfriend back when I was 18, my French boyfriend. My God, I wanted him back. I pleaded with God when I was given Dawn at age 21. And now looking back, I mean, I love that man, still is beautiful. I am so glad God didn't listen. I mean, no, I am glad that deeper parts of me knew that a different life was waiting for me. So it's all parts of us get fulfilled and all parts of us get to manifest. But the question that we can answer maybe is, I have a question for you. Did you ever find the reincarnation of your mom by chance? Or do you know where she is now?
I know where she is.
Uh,
Yeah.
because, I mean, so this is a trick question, guys. I thought, because I've traced the reincarnation of my mom, I thought I also lost my mom when I was 23. You were 16. We both were relatively young.
Yeah.
I accompanied her through and out, and I had certain dreams, but um, she told me the
Oh.
day she was being reincarnated. She said, I'm being reincarnated today. So I wrote it down. I just didn't know where. But what did you discover about the reincarnation of your mom, and how is that story?
Well, without going into too much detail, because the person
Mm,
is
same.
within our family.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, not only it is so obvious, but there's also some suffering
So
that was
what?
carried.
Okay, that's what I'm aiming at. So the individuality that was your mom, how is she doing in this lifetime? Where do you see what happens? Do we take old stuff with us? Do we get a new
She took
chance?
she took some major old stuff with her.
Hmm.
She is in a new structure, a new setup, psychologically, intellectually, in a much much better place,
Okay.
uh, a much different
Than she was when she was a child.
approach and possibility for her to expand in this world.
Hmm.
However, there is still depression and things that
The
my mother
tendencies,
suffered from. There are
the same
the
tendencies. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. But she wasn't ready a few years ago when I showed up on the scene
To
to
hear.
recognize it, because I wanted to go up. My impulse was to go up
Yeah.
and just hug her and just take her with me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to tread very lightly. very lightly.
How have you dealt with that emotionally, that you see your mom, but she doesn't see you?
Ah, that is okay. I'm actually grateful that she can't see me
Why?
because it is actually my job to, at some point, step forward and teach her some things about that other life and connect with her deeper.
But
But
how does it
she
feel?
isn't ready.
How does it
She's
feel?
not ready at the moment.
How does
How
it
does it
feel?
feel?
Yeah,
It
not
feels okay.
you sure?
I mean, my mother and I had a relationship that was, I was always her baby. She kissed me 100 times a day. I was her everything. She told me, she would die if anything happened to me on the spot, and she could
Whoa,
never live without me.
whoa.
It was a very, on her part, very codependent to me because she recognized who I was, but didn't really have the words to understand what was going on.
Hmm.
And so, I'm grateful. Also, my guru filled me in. He did tell me that my mother was a soul that had, prior to this life that she died in, committed suicide many, many, many times, and
Oh,
that I was assigned to that family to help out. So
so do you feel that then, as free and one as we are ascending, when we come back into reincarnation, we pick up the pieces where we left them?
I think so, and I think it has to do with, if we don't learn what we were supposed to gather from that
Hmm.
teaching,
Hmm.
then we need to come back and redo a rerun. It's like, you're clicking.
But
Oh
if we
yeah,
did
okay,
learn,
I didn't get that lesson. I'm gonna do a rerun.
and if we did learn, I mean, how is the continuation of the souls?
We just keep spiraling up into more higher consciousness of realizing that we are really part of the grand ocean of God, and we are a drop of everything you just explained.
So here is my story. I knew my mom for a month. She appeared in my dream and said something very important. And then on the last day, she said, I'm reincarnating today. So I knew the date
Mm,
and I wrote it down. And half a year later, um, her that a, a good friend of our family's calls me and he says, I had a baby girl half a year ago, and that's your mom, I'm pretty sure. And I'm like, oh, what date? And exactly on that date that I had written down, she was born, and he thinks it's my mom. So he like takes pictures as she grows up and sends me, I still have it, a picture of my mom, a picture of the girl, a picture of my mom, a picture of the girl. They were close friends. Like everybody thought it was the same person, just that's a child and that's the grown woman. So even then, other people would see the similarity. Now she grows up. At age 20, she starts to teach things that my mom used to teach when she was in her 40s. I'm
oh,
not going to go into details because she's on the public stage in Germany. So um,
mm,
now I watch her. And when we were young, I mean, I visited, she wanted so much to participate in seminars I taught, but I said, look, I can't organize everything in my life. And tell your dad to organize children's seminars. At any rate, my mom took me to seminars when I was young. Anyhow,
mm,
so now she's fast forwarded older. She's in her 20s and mid 20s, and she starts working, and like my mom did, in a public field.
mm.
I will refuse. I will not go to details to identify the person, but she she shares the fundamental, deep convictions and like things that really matter to her. Then she takes them into this life and does something about them to help certain types of people that matter to her from her experience worldwide.
Mm.
For example, let's just say we were in Afghanistan, so the Afghani women had a certain plight. Now she reincarnates, she was grown enough to do something about it, and she then starts initiating actions to help those women. Da, 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 da. I mean, and that was
Love it.
just a tiny, one of those tiny droplets.
Mm.
Even the decisions, how to act and what choices to make, were based on the traumas or challenges she experienced as that other person in a previous life, as my mom, as her child.
Mhm.
You know, her experiences growing up in the war and being a refugee makes her now make sure that other people in that situation are taken care of. Even though when I look at it, I'm going like, how could you possibly make that choice? But I see the understanding is based on that previous experience that now, given that chance, she will do what she would have liked to have experienced maybe, and that she maybe still held as a grudge, as an anger, as a frustration, as an unfulfilled, unresolved issue, and is helping to resolve maybe in the outside world with other people that. Possibly that's how I see it.
Fascinating,
Fascinating.
fascinating.
So, what
Um,
we are now, our unfinished business, our values, our virtues, our ethics,
yeah.
they are the stepping stones that we bring with us. It's who we become. And the capacity of understanding the universe doesn't suddenly get bigger. We earn step by step our luminosity. The lumens in us are something
Yeah.
we practice. But when we,
Beautifully said.
yeah,
Beautifully said. We earn the luminosity. Exactly. We go step by step.
and you
Hmm.
know, and who incarnates and the patterns and the lessons, there are so many in my book misconceptions and so many projections as to what humanity thinks soul is, and lots of teachers and so many different teachings. I am many people are confused, and that's why I also want to just, different people have different perspectives. There are people who will say when you do the journeys through the astral dimensions and then you come to crystalline worlds, in the Satmak teachings, you go onward. Tell me a little bit about what your guru said and what your experiences are of going beyond when you reach non-duality, when you reach the first levels of pure soul awareness, for
Hmm.
as different from the mental astral etheric expression,
Hmm. Well, I think that the biggest lessons for me come through leaving my body for so many years, for so many years and so many hours of this complete, it's almost like a 0 point energy that you reach. You go through that veil where you feel you're like tinier than an ant. I don't know if you ever went through that one. Probably you did, right? Where you feel so small and so insignificant. It's almost like some people may even call that a dark night of the soul, but I don't call it that. I just call it the total breakdown. Realizing that in the big scheme of things, you're insignificant. And because you feel that in the moment, you then can come back out into this luminous
exactly.
light to go to the next level, because they can't allow you, whoever they or God, the
Right,
Godhead,
right,
can't allow you to go to the next level
with a
if
big
you're going
head.
to be attached to your identity,
Right.
your ego, your personality, your character. I mean, this was a problem for me, because I wasn't sure how after experiencing all this in my early 20s, I wasn't sure how to integrate into this world and how to fit. Like what kind of job should I do? How, what was prescribed by my family was not what I could deliver.
Mm.
They wanted me to be something that I could never be. I mean, you know this. And how did it feel to go beyond astral, causal? Is so extremely humbling, because it's so pure in love. Yogananda speaks of it so well. And I don't really know how far I've gone, honestly. I can't really tell you
Hmm.
if I
In the big scheme
went
of things,
to
right?
this plane or that plane. I just know that I was greatly blessed by being allowed to meet this guru, to meet Kirpal Singh, to meet Thakur, and to be embraced by the masters of the East and be allowed to be taught this meditation
Hmm.
and to be allowed in this human form
Hmm.
that
Mm.
is me, that is
Mm.
called Petra.
Yeah.
That is, beyond that, it's in India, like we sat on, the master was on the dais, and there were 40,000 people, and all the Westerners were piled up in the front by the stage. It was a birthday celebration, Pandara. And a man walked in with a cane, and he was a little dirty, his feet were pretty dirty, and he looked like a beggar from the street. And the master saw him, and he ran down from the stage and ran toward him and kissed his feet.
Mm. And who was it?
And he said, he then went back up on the stage, on the dais, and he said that this man is an enlightened soul,
Mm.
you know. And I always thought of, if I had to go back to India, because I was destined to live a Western life as a Western woman and looking like this. But if I had not been destined to be in this body that I am now, Petra, I would have probably opted to be a beggar in India. You know, I would have. I would have perhaps preferred that. I think
I
about that often.
really, I honestly, when I was young, I envisioned living very meagerly, and that was my ideal. And it was appalling to experience some of the splendor that I was put into. Uh, for example, when I was working as a flight attendant at age 19, coming into five-star hotels in London, and my vision, I wanted to be a poor student in Oxford, and it's like I learned that this too you can learn to love. So when one no longer maybe is attached to a certain thing, you are free to receive it. That would be the biggest truth that I could share, is that the things that come easily to us are the ones that where it's no big deal to imagine it, because it doesn't feel like it's like, yeah, it's okay. And or you can learn to love it too, rather than have an attitude about it. And such, it really benefits us not to judge anything or anyone, because we usually have to wind up going through those shoes, standing in those shoes, self-loving ourselves in those shoes, and then going, oh, this too I can learn to love. So let's do it right away. Let's always remember that whatever we judge, we usually get to experience, and it might as well right now not judge, and right now let the other one have their heyday in the opposition point, and
Mhm.
be glad that somebody's occupying it, not me right now. And it's like God wants to have every possibility under the sun alive. I have a question for you. When you said you're living another life, I actually have had this too. I walk in the forest, and I was a teenager, and I'm looking down at my feet, and I'm like going, "Ah, if I didn't know any better, it's almost like I'm actually not really in this form. I'm at another level having this experience." I mean, that's how I used to feel. So, but then I had this secret awakening one night. I was sleeping in Hawaii, and I woke up, sat up in bed, and I said to Dawn, Dawn, I understood what we are doing. We are, this is what I said, are a space-faring race, being in stasis, having a virtual reality experience down here to grow through our projected lives as a being. So evolution still keeps going. And so it reminded me of your multi-dimensional perspective, not just being soul, but living another identity in another form, and then meeting in this dream, like a dream within a dream, sort of.
Didn't Stephen Hawkins talk about that before he died? That this is a simulation, that the Earth is a simulation?
Hawkins, I think he said last I listened to him, he said, this is a forever expanding universe, and it'll die out of coldness. And I think he lost it at the very end, personally, but because I do think, and God showed me itself, it's a toroid, a forever returning to itself, toroidal figure.
Yeah.
And that's the body of God. And that's manifestation of that ephemeral something. And yeah, it could be a matrix, if she's the
Isn't that funny?
the ultimate truth. Yeah.
But to come back to this one, question. I heard something yesterday. I was listening to a talk with Alex Ferrari on Next Level Soul, and he was interviewing a medium. And he talked about his early life, how he was very poor, and it is easier said than done. Like when you are destined to walk a spiritual path, it's already written in the stars that a sequence of events will happen in your life where you have no choice.
Do you believe
but
that there is a
to walk.
difference for a
Yeah,
spiritual path or a normal path? Is not every path actually a spiritual path?
yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
so what do you mean
maybe
by
every
destined
path
to
is a
walk a
spirit.
spiritual path?
But people ask the question, I'm speaking to the audience in this.
Yeah, but I
It's like,
mean,
oh,
is there a difference between living and living?
no,
I
not in
mean,
essence.
in
But
essence, yeah. What
some
is a
people
spiritual
believe.
life? What is a spiritual life?
Yeah.
What
So
is that?
some people believe, oh, it's easy for you to say, you experienced all these things and, you've had this easy life and it's been, you were given all these things to do and you got to go to India and you got to meet your master and blah, 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 blah. And this interview yesterday was powerful because he talked about how he was so poor. He was sleeping in his car. He was completely homeless. He was, he couldn't even imagine what his life would look like as it is right now. And having had these experiences, it's very hard to step into this other life when you're struggling for a loaf of bread, you know. And so what my thought was on that is that every human here has a, what's the word I'm looking for? For every human on this planet, everyone that incarnates here, in order for you to come to this earth and incarnate here, you have to have already been a spirit higher being in order to even make it into this form of density. You couldn't even come into this density. You would just implode if you weren't already an enlightened being.
How about a dog?
Well, the animals apparently are all on the other side waiting for us, and they all have souls. And so people that say that animals don't have souls, I disagree. I disagree. I think animals have souls and they also progress
Where do
in
souls
the.
get baked?
Where do they get baked?
It's a trick question.
How do we bake them? Out of the ocean of God, they get baked.
Yeah, but how does it start?
How does it start? That is the question, isn't it?
I have my theory.
I have my theory. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, I do.
No, it's not my theory. It's my guru. I
Okay.
ran into his room in India. I was so frustrated. I was so upset. Somebody had come to India and it was on her schedule to hurt herself physically. And he had written her 3 telegrams and begged her to come to India, but she still had to go through the motion of doing this to herself. He did save her life, but it was really a very terrible scene. I was so upset. I ran into the room. I said, what is this? Like, I can't believe God would be so cruel to put humans here that have to suffer like this. I have had it. I'm done. And he went to his secretary, he said, give her a cup of tea and some sweets and calm Petra down. And then he was stroking my head like this. And I sat there crying. And I said, why did God create humans, Master? This is such a mistake. And he said, God is all creativity, and with one hand, he creates creation, and with the other hand, he pulls it back into himself. and it is going on forever and ever. And so everything that happens eventually goes back to love. So don't be upset. So,
So true. That's exactly it. Yeah. I have a theory on this evolution of soul.
yeah.
You want to hear it?
Of course, I want to hear it alone. I want to hear everything you say.
Well, I think, like you said, God becomes everything. And in that, we do have the expulsion, the plasmic eventual development, particles, the details, dust, the minerals, and then eventually the out of the suprastructure of isness, everything finds itself and becomes the algae, the water, the oxygen, all the parts that then eventually create single-celled organisms and multiple cells, then vertebrae, then eyes, then tastes, then perceivers, then the structures that can start reflecting, noticing, cognizing, and then also sensing, because truthfully, our structure is not just physical, it's metaphysical all the time. But it becomes then aware of the next layer of reality around, and animals can do that. But in that awareness thing, when we focus, and what I do when I meet people inwardly, and what we did before we started our interview, is to coalesce. And I think in meditation, what we learn is to coalesce in absolute stillness in the 0 point, but which at once is nothing and becomes the explosion of everything.
Mhm.
But it has a vortexual power. It is an imprint that is different from one gravitational something, a kernel of gravitational field to another. And that kernel of gravitational field, it's almost like it develops out of the birth of the matter and birthing itself into awareness, birthing a gravitational spin. So psychically, when we create a collapse of dual 2 points emotionally, when we do therapy, coaching, and we take the negative and the positive vision of something and merge them, as I do in the processes, a 0 point field ensues.
Mhm.
And in that moment, it opens and pulls in a new creation, and gravitational forces pull in the new film, the new structure, which is why when we are able to pull duality into ourselves and become the union thereof, the next level of reality is open to us only then. As long as we still fight and see the duality, and that, let's mark my word, even in politics, as long as we see the evil here or there, we can no
Mhm.
longer, we're stuck in watching that. As soon as you
Yeah.
can come into the union, you are liberated to the next evolutionary level. And that is the promised new world. And if you manage to get there yourself now, you can partake in that reality, and those laws will apply to you. Now, cats, dogs, other animals, dolphins have this capacity to different degrees, just like humans have it to different degrees. The incarnation of this brilliant gravitational field brings with it the memory, but you can say it's still part of the matrix of time space. Yes,
Mhm.
eventually and all returns to the source of nothingness and allness. But I always say, if it was God's intention to have everything illuminated to the point of not being nothing, it would have already happened. But
Right.
apparently, it's an ongoing cyclic thing, and God is having a lot of fun and this is what I think the purpose is, becoming the individuated gravitational consciousness that returns its gaze to the source and at the same time is the form and the formless, is capable of being the whole and the part. And I have had a cat that was supra capable of telepathic communication with me, saved my battery from dying a couple of times when she called me and told me to come out and look at what she was looking at. And she's like looking at the car door that's open and going, this doesn't look normal, you know? And I'm like, oh, thank you. 2 times. In the middle of the night, she calls me and says, you have to come out. And I'm like going, what? And she's like, look. And she looks at my car, and I'm like going, oh, the door, the seatbelt had gotten stuck. On and on, different dolphins, but different animals have different gravitational intensities, which I call them the seat of the soul. And all of us can learn in our ascension through the various layers of states of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
to make it through that 0 point and then hold it again and again and be the 0 point, be awareness within the unity, and or become completely absorbed in it, but you will
Mm-hmm.
always land with your own 2 feet
This
because
this is
God is
only
happening in one.
possible. This is only possible through meditation.
Right. Yeah. Yes,
So
absolutely.
if anyone wants to get there with thought through the mind, it
Yeah,
is not possible to get
right.
there.
Right. But
And it is not possible to go do it with external assistance from drugs, you know. I
right.
mean,
Absolutely not.
it's
It's
temporary. This is how do you feel about Elon Musk's latest invention on the, what is it called, that chip?
Neuralink.
The
Well,
Neuralink. Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, now people can see or talk or use limbs. And what I'm really, really, really against, because I've been in the future where I
Mhm.
I know genetic manipulation is not ours to do. I know we will
Right.
do it, but I have come back from the future and I know I am vehemently against it. Now, I understand, wouldn't it be great to fix the ABCs? But I tell you, because we're so limited in our understanding and playing God, trying to not knowing what consciousness is, we cannot fix karmic patterns. We come in as soul and we bring with us. If there was a wound here in the next incarnation, that imprint is still there. The
Correct.
It's if we were to change that and play God and eliminate the lesson. Well, is that really what we are here to? And I know the future will be that we will outbreed and create um, a so-called bio-robotic human, and that is no longer capable of interfacing with God. It will be the end of the unity. It will be the being expelled out of paradise. And our
So
paradise,
overriding the God gene, in other words.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think creation by itself is capable of returning to the source. Artificial creation is not. Neither
Mm.
AI nor AGI nor anything created has the, because it took billions of years to create that super sensitive structure that's multidimensionally woven into the origin of creation.
Mhm.
Creating Pinocchio is not going to create a duplicate. It's maybe going to look like a duplicate, but it's not.
Mhm.
Like in the movie Transcendence, where um, that guy that always plays the pirate, the guy that
Oh, the pirate. Yeah, 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 yeah. The
the
Pirate of the Caribbean. What's his name?
yeah, that
Transcendence.
John
Oh,
Deep,
yeah, I watched that movie.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
Johnny Depp.
he is the main actor, and he thinks like the transhumanist. He can transpose his
Mm.
pattern into a computer pattern, and his wife, or I think it's his partner or wife, then thinks, "Oh my God, here he is." It's the
Mm.
semblance. There is no soul. There is that gravitational field that you and I have where we met earlier.
Mhm. Yeah.
That is not duplicable, even though that duplicates patterns, you and me having similar forms, lives, similar choices. But we're
Mm.
still individual. We still are igniting each other when we meet, when we talk. The
Mhm.
pattern may be the same, but the essence is alive, and it's God talking through the looking glass.
Mm.
So thank you. What do you think about people getting there with ayahuasca?
Hmm.
And
Well, I find that it is perhaps useful for some people. I do have a few friends who had some very bad trips with ayahuasca. I would never touch it personally because I do feel that there's an entity attached to that, and I don't really like to dance with those types of entities. Um, it might be useful. Like I have a lot of friends that do mushrooms, mushroom like or iboga. I mean, that would be great for somebody who's trying to kick a heroin addiction. It could be useful. How do you feel about it?
Well, I have been told since I was young, do not touch any substances. I don't even drink any drop of alcohol. I don't,
Mm,
I mean, even kombucha, I'm like going, I don't like that effect on my brain. But so I'd take small sips and mix it because of the like
mm,
sauerkraut I take
mm,
for the stomach, but for the intestines. But I have seen and known people who took LSD trips. They
mm,
come back totally transformed. I interviewed a guy who did microdosing with ayahuasca to people who had addiction problems, and he swore by it. And I
mm.
know other electromedicine. I mean, you attach an electrical current to the brain, it stimulates the production of, you know, neurotransmitters. We can do it a lot of different, more easy ways. But he said,
Yeah.
for example, his dad, he said, God, after the trip, I couldn't even recognize him. Like he was a totally different being. And I'm like
Wow.
going, yep, your father got kicked out and another one came in because, the tethers got cut. I know quite a few who came in and are now in a different soul. Um, my husband is one. His mom even said, because that person who got kicked out during one of those trips came back a year later as his own nephew, his sister's son. And the mom, his own mom now, who is the grandmother to that little boy, says and calls him by the person who left, Don's name, and calls him that and says, I don't know why, but he feels like he's my son. She, she was psychic. She felt that soul reincarnated and said, you are not really the son I had. She figured it out. But that boy, that soul came back and now is like, was 19 and now is a baby boy again and goes through all of it again with the sister, had some more karma to do. The new one that came in is done technically the walk in. But when
Mhm.
we think out of our own eyes, like we go, oh, I have my memories from my childhood. I must be that person, even though it's a new soul. And this little boy now is actually that soul. Now, is that called growth, evolution, change? Would I want to kick myself out just to show up and start over as a child again necessary? I'd rather stay here, continue my life, and not confuse a kick out trip with transformation, even though I
Mhm.
would espouse suddenly being such a different being. Technically,
Mhm.
I would be, right? I would be another soul. It's like gone,
Right.
lost, suicide, something like that. So,
Exactly.
yeah, the trips, I mean, it's like crutches at best.
Mhm.
Some people,
Well, and it's for people that have walked
those paths.
in the path of the masters, and
Mm,
we had to dive deep into the meditation for many, 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 many years. So, with many of the accounts of Kirpal Singh of what he said about LSD and different drugs, because he came into an arena in the 60s, flower power, all this Woodstock, etc. There was all that floating around. And he gave a lot of talks on the effects of LSD or
what did he
mushrooms.
say? What did he say?
He basically said, yeah, you could take that journey, but why wouldn't you take the natural journey, which is a lot brighter?
Right. I mean, honestly, kicking oneself, pretending to be able to be free. Let's say people drink alcohol to feel liberated, right? They aren't.
Mhm,
They come back when they are without the drug or without the substance. They still can't open their mouth or share their authentic self or their feelings. They'll do it when they're inebriated. So that's not an ability. So going on trips doesn't train ourselves. And I am very sorry to see people who endorse it as a spiritual journey because it really is a crutch that doesn't teach the person And like you said, it leaves holes and entity energies that can come in. And believe me, when we meditate, we need to have our vortexual pure
Mm.
intensity intact, or else, yeah, we do need to deal with those entities that all too happy try to get a ride.
Get
I,
inside those holes. I had a psychic friend uh, he used to come to Oregon and do workshops, and I used to, organize his events. And I opened a healing center and restaurant. I don't know if you know this about me, but I had a juice bar and vegetarian restaurant and healing center, and I had a sweat lodge on my property, and I did lots of retreats. And he came. I had this partner who smoked a lot of pot. I mean, a lot of. I mean, first thing in the morning, he would have a joint. He smoked a lot of pot. I don't have a problem with pot. I'm friendly to all this. Whatever people want to do, they can do. But this became a problem when he would show up very, very stoned at the restaurant and had to take over from me and would not portion the product we were putting out to people
oh no.
correctly
Oh,
and give twice as much. So I was kind of frustrated. And
so
I called him up. I called him up on the phone and I said, tell me about marijuana. Give me like the 2-minute version of what it is. And he says, okay, well, so do you really want to hear it? And I said, yes, I want to hear it. Give me that. He said, so marijuana, it's the female of the plant that people smoke,
mm,
which is in the ethers, portrays the hag, the witch. And what it does is give you this illusionary concept or this illusionary idea that everything you're thinking about manifests, and that you have all these wonderful feelings and you're feeling all soft and flowy, and it's this feminine energy. But what happens in the process of this, you can't really ground it into earth, so it doesn't manifest. And it actually throws holes into your astral body. So you're leaking these ideas out, and they can never really come into a very grounded, stable version of what it is you want to create. Although I did see a lot of my friends that were, smoking a lot of pot, doing great things in the world and manifesting just fine. But this is what he said.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, people can do what they want. I always say, if you want to meditate with me or be my client, 3 months, no pot, no drugs, no nothing. I've taken a lot of people through that out, and they then learned how to stabilize those fields on their own, how to become actually potently capable of entering those states on their own without the dependency on any substance. I remember when I was uh, preparing for a psychotherapy training, I did body work and based on body-centered psychotherapy and breath work. And I had a client and he came in, I massaged him, and I'm like going, as wishy as I feel in my head right now, I could swear that the person that I'm massaging is drugged. So I asked him, I said, excuse me, by any chance, are you getting high before you come here? And he goes, oh yeah, I mean, it makes the massage so much nicer. And I'm like going, I'm sorry to let you know, but I will not do any massages with a
Wow.
person inebriated. I will not. And so when I taught seminars, we didn't serve any alcohol at Shambhala. We don't serve any alcohol. I live in an Indonesian country, so no drugs whatsoever are permitted. So I can say
Oh,
always, no. And I'm like saying, if you want to be around me, that's the highway. Yeah, you can do whatever you wanted. Everybody's free to be. However, that's the path I know, and I'm like saying, I'm when Don and I got together, he was playing out. He was playing music at the time. He was a rock star, but he was teaching meditation and then also playing music in places, and they would give him beer and things to drink. And I said, if you want to date me, that's a no-go. Zippo. And Don had been fully off of any substances, been vegetarian. And then in those circumstances, kind of like, well, what do you say? Do you say no? And I'm like, it's a no. And I say 0 is an easy number to remember. You don't have to debate whether a quarter or a half a glass is enough or too much. Zero is like zero. It's like, let's join the club. Zero is an easy number to remember. And you can get there on your own. And your vortexual ability to create a spin factor is much more capable when you're clear, when you create the gravitational pull of 0 point in your consciousness. You will be able to part the waves, so to speak, the Moses waves of the Red Sea at will, if need be,
Hmm.
versus being in a cloud thinking that it's happening, or
Hmm.
like going, where is up and where is down? And we need that clarity, especially going forward from now on. We need to be able to see timelines. We need to hear, to listen to our intuition. And mine said, don't even drink Coca-Cola when I was young. It wasn't my anybody, it was my inner guidance. No
Yeah,
Coca-Cola, no,
Coca-Cola.
no, nothing. And it even said, don't do antibiotics. I had to once, I had 2 times in my life I did, but whatever. It's if you absolutely have to. I
Yeah.
was having an ear infection. It wasn't going away. And I was like, that's very close to the brain. My doctor said, girl, it's not a choice. So at any
Yeah.
rate, but those, you know, I don't want to recommend doing something just because you think it's the right thing. It has to be an inner calling, but that's
Hmm.
my stance. You know, I, I can say, hey, do whatever you want. God wants to experience everything, and there is a
It's free
learning.
will here. It's free
Yes,
will.
free will, absolutely. And so I wouldn't be the dictator yogi and saying no war, no nothing, because ultimately I ideally would like that. But I'm going to say God allows everything. So all
Yeah.
the lessons are important, but we will eventually, and I can tell you, all the people who've been through it know it. So that's, I can just say, if you want to join the club, zero, zero
Well,
point
there you
consciousness.
have it. There you have it.
Yes.
So, are you in Washington?
Right now, I'm in Washington. Yes, we'll be here
Yeah.
throughout the summer. The summer is fantastic. I mean, going into those mountains, going hiking. I mean, today we have a great day, and I'm praying for a little bit of rain. But I do know the earth changes are coming. I personally believe that in my vision, I'd like to hear what you've seen, but um, I think we have a celestial body that we haven't found with our things, but I think potentially a burnt out white dwarf from our solar binary sun, the binary part of our sun, that is
Uh-huh.
regularly circling around. And I think our magma field of our Earth innermost core is being pulled up to the surface. It's shifting
Okay.
our pole. I think we're going to have um, a warming of the ice shelves from underneath, which is why it's melting underneath in the Antarctica. Have you ever figured that out? How CO2 can melt the ice from underneath? Anyways, those ice shelves are being heated up from partially from underneath, and we will have weather changes. And so do be aware, I would not move to the east coast or northeast of America. It's going to be very cold there. Northern Europe is going to be flooded, water, and colder.
Northern Europe.
Yep, like Netherlands up into northern Germany,
Yeah.
Denmark, that Schleswig-Holstein, that whole region.
Hmm.
I think we're going to have more water rising. We will have weather patterns, tropics, heat. I think Washington will get warmer. I think you'll see that in Oregon, but it's
Oh,
going to
we're
get
gonna live in the tropics in Washington. How, hallelujah. That's exciting.
hallelujah. Yeah, I'm not sure tropics, but certainly subtropics, but warmer, warmer. And I think other places will get too scorching hot. I mean, people moving
Yeah.
to Phoenix, and I mean, a lot of them, I'm like going, are you nuts? Of course, things can take 10, 20, 30 years. And so my visions are tentatively uh, farther down the road, but that's not much really in a lifetime. I mean, my life.
I had a really interesting experience. I moved to Mexico and had an accident and fell down the stairs. Like there was no railing, and I landed in the basement. And it was I call it my celestial fall, my divine fall,
Mm,
because the universe sent me sailing down into the basement. Because yeah, it was necessary for me to get a big wake up call on something that I needed to learn. And they took me to a healer. in Chula Vista, across the border from Tijuana. It's next to San Diego. And the woman's name was Madre Sarita. And I didn't know who that was. They carried me in. First, they took me to the hospital, and if you've ever been in an ambulance going in place like Mexico with all the potholes, and you have broken ribs,
No,
and they
not you, not you. Stop
on a
it.
stretcher
You
to
had
the
that. Okay, you
hospital.
had that. You
And,
didn't like
and, by,
it.
and by the time you get there, you have
I
more
got
broken
there.
ribs.
You got there. You got there. I didn't get there. We need to be careful with our language. Imagine you did. You did. I'm very aware how we hypnotize each other. So tell your own story,
So,
please. Don't make
so
me
you know,
be the part of your story. Okay, thank you. I am very,
okay.
very firm on that. Sorry. Okay, you
And
did that. You
and
experienced a
so
lot of potholes. Okay.
a lot of potholes, and it was really amazing. So the hospital, they couldn't really do much. They just sent me home, and then the next day, this miraculous angel arrived at our house. He was a doctor that was friends with my then relationship with Christopher. And he insisted that Christopher immediately take me to this healer in Chula Vista. So when they carried me in, I had never experienced a Nagual Indian ceremony or healing. So she rolled this egg all over me and then cracked it in a glass of water and read my physical and astral body. Well, she also told me about the earth changes that are
Hmm.
coming.
What she said.
And she told me about 9/11, and this all happened in 1994.
Well,
And she told me about 9/11 going to happen at the turn of the century, and that this would be the beginning of the big war. And then she said that we should move inland Mexico into the mountains, and that the entire peninsula, Baja Peninsula, would be gone and underwater.
hmm right, sooner or
And
later. Hmm.
she basically said that the floods are coming. All this beach that you see now from your house, you're right on the beach
Right,
in Rosarito Beach where I was living, is all going to be gone. It's all
right.
going to be. And so I stood in my at my house in 2000. When was 9/11? 9/11 was, yeah. So
2001.
September 11th, 2001, was it
Yeah,
2000? Yeah.
2001.
So I was in the garden at my house near Roseburg, Oregon, and somebody came driving into the driveway and told me about what had just happened.
Mm. In the morning, yeah.
And I just went down on the ground, and I remembered what Madre Sarita said. And then when I wrote Petra's Ashes, Ilona, I went one night, woke up at 3 in the morning, and remembered Madre Sarita and looked her up online. And I found out that she was the mother of Miguel Ruiz.
Oh,
The
really? Wow, the four agreements.
Yeah.
Wow, wow.
So she gave a very clear
Reading
uh,
of the future.
prediction of what was about to happen on our planet,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and that
many
may
of them
still
came
take
true.
another 10 years or so. I don't know. At this stage, who knows how quickly the ice masses? Well, I mean, see, that's why I'm saying we're thinking Earth changes from the outside, CO2. It's the magma, and it's that, from my perspective, what I saw, what's floating around, it looks like a collapsed sun. Um, so that's having a magnetic pull on our magnetic field and the magnetic lava, I mean the iron core. And so it's coming more to the surface. We'll have more volcanic activity too, and plate activity, as well as warming up and cooling, and the changes of the Gulf Stream, the breaking down of the Atlantic transportation system of the Gulf. And, yes, so what to do? I mean, worst case scenario, we are not able to harmonize, and we'll fight, the people with opposite beliefs, because our society is about to go defunct if we don't manage to go and say, you too can, I too can learn to love this. This is my favorite line from the book, The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. Thaddeus
Right.
Golas, who wrote it as a trip advice to his people who were all bummed out on LSD trips. He said, just ask yourself, you're of the
Yeah.
same stuff. Just ask. This too you can learn to love. We're all the same. So this too you can learn to love. Might as well start right now. And then the people came out of their nightmares with those sentences. Anyways, I think when we are, we have to evolve. And usually we do it through a lot of pain. Now, in individual lives, I can guarantee you, if you voluntarily set the bar up and grow towards something, which is why it is so good to do goal setting things or personal growth stuff or coachings, go towards a challenge voluntarily and you will expand and grow. Then the universe doesn't have to bunk your nose to make you grow
Right, you don't have to beat it over the head with a two by
or
four.
fall down,
This is
the steps
becoming
and
a
all that.
conscious co-creator of the divine plan,
Right,
than learning by default.
right. So if
Yeah.
you are the type of person who can voluntarily choose to grow, aim towards a goal, whatever it is, God realization, self-realization, aim towards manifesting something that makes your wings stretch out slowly, gently. No use in hurrying because there is no super fast time you need to get anywhere. Uh, God's mill grind slowly. However, then you are growing, and that's the only requirement of life, is that we keep expanding to a greater field than we were ever before. However, uh, not everybody can jump ship, right? I'm like saying, where do you want to be? Envision the world you want to experience.
Yeah.
What it is.
You know, there was a moment in India, a meditation I had, where I saw our current Earth implode in a big fireball.
Mm.
But right behind it was the new version of the Earth
Mhm.
that came in pristine and untouched.
Mm.
And I asked my guru about that. He said, yes, 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 that is like the golden age. And he was just wiggling his Indian head.
Right.
Yes, 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 that's just the golden age.
And you know what?
So,
I think we're living in the golden age. People say this is the disaster. Yes, there are disasters, but no king had it as good as you and I have it right now in the past.
no king had it as good as you and I, because we have running
I
water,
know. And carpets, central heating.
we have cars,
I know. We can talk
not horse and
around.
buggies.
Yes, and we can talk to anybody across the planet free of charge if you have
Hmm.
internet.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it
Yeah.
is, we live in the most amazing times. So let's make good use of it. Dream up a
Yes.
good world. We do need to collectively dream together and not anticipate and project constantly the disaster because people love disaster. Let's just imagine what on earth would the peaceful transition feel like? What would it be like if we grew to the next level, which to me is understanding we're one humanity, we're one globe. We have
That could be
access
a
to one.
movement, Ilona. It
Hmm?
could be a movement. We could
Yeah,
call it, let's come dream together.
yeah.
We could start a
Nice. I like
movement.
it. Let's dream together.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yep, repeat John Lennon's words.
Imagine all the people living life in
Uh,
peace. Yeah.
there you go. Yes. So, in conclusion, both you and I write about dreaming up a better reality, co-creating
Mhm.
because we are conscious, co-creative dreamers. We
Mhm.
both talk about the importance of becoming awake to the actual creator, which is soul and God realization, self-realization, God realization. Anything
Mhm.
else that you would want to add, summarizing from our collective wisdom and sharing and understanding and insights, or any aha for you right now?
Yeah, my aha right now is let's come dream together. I think we all need to do more gatherings. We need to gather the people and we need to learn to come out of this duality thinking of, we can create
Yes,
a new world by just the way we feel and think and dream together.
right,
But not, but we must be able to feel it. We must be able to feel, we
right.
must be able to identify it in
So
our
I
hearts.
actually have a program, a year study program. Many people in Germany have done it now for 3 years already. And so I have 365 daily videos to inspire one to think about the evolutionary process of
Yes.
co-creating. And once a month we meet and do a monthly meditation as to what is important for that month and to vision individually and collectively. So that is one way of me contributing to that. So
What is that called again, Ilona? So people
it's on my
can.
online school, ilonaselke.online. It's the year course, the 365-day manifesting course for
Wonderful.
ideal.
That's so wonderful.
Anything that you're offering that people can find out about?
Well, I still do retreats. I still gather with people. We're going to have another meditation group here soon.
Awesome.
Just go to my
Awesome.
website and
What's your
uh,
website? I will put it in the description below, or you will.
petranicoll.com.
So what's that
Mm-hmm.
again? Petra?
petranicoll.com.
Okay, just like the name with the double L. No
Just the
E.
last name.
Yeah,
Double L.
no,
No E.
no E.com. Okay, I will make sure to put the links down below. I loved it.
Thank
I hope
you.
whoever has made it to the end, I congratulate you. I think you're part of the team. I know that you are here to be a world saver, shaker, savior, being of a contributing dreamer of illumination. And let's create heaven on earth, because that's actually that's my logo. That's what I live in, you know.
Heaven on earth, exactly. And you're such an inspiration to me.
Oh,
So
thank
all I
you,
have to do now is if I ever feel down
mommy.
or depressed, I was like, oh, where's my friend Ilona? I need a dose of Ilona.
Ah,
I need to
sweet,
get
call out my name, and
and this is the other thing, Ilona.
wherever I am.
Many of the teachers, many of the guides out there, they too need a lot of help. It
Well,
can sometimes be a lonely path for people that are teaching and that are putting all this work out. And so,
yeah,
teacher,
yeah,
teacher.
yeah. And actually, I think one of the greatest challenges for me is that internal singularity alone. Is in a way you have to be capable and being able to alone. That's my growing edge anyways. Meanwhile, I love company and seeing the same self meet, and I love having discussed privately our past life incarnations and learnings. Thank you for all of your wisdom, and
Thank
I
you.
thank all of us, and let's create a good dream of the future and be part of dreaming heaven on earth.
Let's do it. Dream on.
Mwah.
Ciao,
Okay.
ciao.
Bye.
Much
Ciao.
love.